fans has died. Nina Nanar takes a look at Harrison's life and legacy.
By the time he was 21 in 1964, George Harrison was one of the most famous people in the world.
I don't really fancy 21. I much rather like 20, you know, it's sort of a nice round figure and all that.
It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night, I should be sleeping like a log.
It had been a rapid rise to superstardom for the shy Liverpudlian, who first joined a skiffle band as a 15-year-old, linking up with John Lennon, Stuart Sutcliffe and also Paul McCartney in the band The Quarrymen a year later. They went on to become the Beatles. When he was just 19, the Beatles were top of the charts and creating hysteria everywhere they went. Harrison would later say being a Beatle was a nightmare. A serious self-taught guitarist, the music was often drowned out by the screams of Beatlemania. In fact, he'd come to be known as the quiet one of the Beatles.
He was the one that was least keen on stardom. He was the one that was least, but at the same time, he was one that was the most self-contained about it. I think a lot of it was to do with a secure family background. All the other three Beatles came from what can be described, I suppose, as broken homes.
Something the way she moves attracts me like no other lover.
In 1966, he married Pattie Boyd. He later went on to write Something, a #1 hit, which allowed him at last to show off his songwriting skills. It was described by Frank Sinatra as the most beautiful love song ever written. One of his main claims to fame during the Beatles' years was his devotion to Eastern philosophy. He persuaded the other band members to travel to India to study with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. It was only when the Beatles broke up in 1970 that he was able to emerge from the shadows of Lennon and McCartney and properly establish himself as a successful songwriter. He was the first of the Beatles to stage a solo world tour, the first to have success as a solo artist, though this huge hit, My Sweet Lord, led to him losing a legal case over claims he'd stolen the music.
What? I warned you.
In the 80s, he turned his hand to film production. Monty Python's Life of Brian, one of the major successes enjoyed by his company, Handmade Films.
Because they had a hell of a time.
He was back in the spotlight in 1987 with the hit single Got My Mind Set on You. The band The Travelling Wilburys, also a successful musical venture, but his public appearances were becoming less and less. He chose instead a reclusive lifestyle, living quietly with his second wife Olivia and their son Danny on a huge country estate in Oxfordshire. It had been quite a journey for this reserved working-class boy from Liverpool, who'd always dreamed of being in a rock and roll band. In his 40-year career, he proved himself a solo artist, a talented songwriter. But George Harrison will always be best remembered simply as one of the Beatles. Nina Nanar, ITN.